It appears as though the Edmonton Oilers and the Philadelphia Flyers are engaging in trade talks which might see goaltender Cam Talbot be shipped over to the Philadelphia Flyers. Plus, I also want to discuss some potential interest in other players that could be moved for the deadline, including Eric Staal and Ceci. We'll discuss all that coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, TSN insider Darren Dreger has reported today that the Edmonton Oilers and Philadelphia Flyers are engaging in trade talks, and apparently it is quite possible we might see goaltender Cam Talbot be shipped over to the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, as we know, the Flyers have a lot of goaltenders. Unfortunately for the team, a lot of them has been injured, but I guess in a positive spin on that is they finally were able to get Carter Hart into some action, and he's made out quite well, and the goaltender of the future certainly now appears to be the goaltender of the present, getting a lot of games in and doing quite well, helping the team get on a winning streak and kind of get back into potential contention here to at least make a run at the playoffs and try to salvage what they can of this 18-19 season. Now, of course, the Edmonton Oilers are desperately trying to clear some cap space for a variety of reasons. Mainly, right now, they want to get the defenseman Andre Sekera, who's coming back from a long-term injury. He's on the conditioning stint in the minors. He's ready to be activated, but they can't. However, to activate him and create a roster spot for him, they need to find some cap space. So they'd like to move Cam Talbot on. As we know, they signed goaltender Mikko Koskinen right before Peter Chiarelli was let go to a longer-term deal with some, fairly substantial money. So clearly they have confidence in him to be the goaltender of the future. Now, of course, if Talbot were to be shipped over to the Flyers, it's widely believed that they would be getting a goaltender in return, but I don't think the return is going to be really all that substantial considering Talbot's play and his contract, even though there's not a lot of time left on that deal. I do think as well it'd be quite likely that the Flyers may re-sign him to obviously a lesser term deal, lesser money, but keep him around with Carter Hart. Now, in case you don't know, Carter Hart and Cam Talbot do have an off-ice relationship. They have become friends. They've worked out together a couple of summers, and where they do know each other and get along quite well, the Flyers might be interested in having Talbot kind of mentor Carter Hart and be that veteran goaltender that works with him here over the next couple of years as he really gets himself situated and becoming a full-time NHL goaltender. I mean, they have Brian Elliott, they have Michael Neuwirth. Both those guys are pending unrestricted free agents. Definitely not going to be re-signed by the Flyers, that much we know. And of course, they also have young goaltender Anthony Stolarz, who is still young enough that if he were able to catch on and get a full-time, playing time position with somebody, that he could still be, a good starting goaltender that he was expected to be when he was drafted. Unfortunately for Stolarz, he's encountered a lot of injuries, which has really derailed his development and set him back here for a period of time. But I mean, he certainly has had his moments with the Flyers when he has had playing time, and he's looked pretty solid. So not quite clear exactly what would be going back to Edmonton. I'm not sure if they'd be trying to get Stolarz included in the deal, or if they would take on one of the other pending UFA goaltenders in Elliott or Neuwirth just to get them through the remainder of the season and let Koskinen be the main goalie. Not quite clear exactly how that would work, or maybe the Oilers would include something else to kind of sweeten the deal a little bit where Talbot's contract isn't overly favorable. Either way, they're trying to create at least a couple $1 million in cap space extra here to get Sekera off of LTIR and into their lineup. So stay tuned here. The deal doesn't appear to exactly be imminent as of yet, but it would not be shocking here over the next 24 to 48 hours if we see the deal take place. That doesn't mean it's going to be exactly the way I described it, and it very well might take longer as well. But right now there is a link between the Oilers and Flyers, with possibly Cam Talbot going to Philadelphia. So we'll keep your eye on that one here as we approach the deadline coming up on February the 25th. So as I mentioned as well, there's certainly a couple other players that are getting a lot of attention by a lot of NHL teams for potential trade deadline deals here, including Eric Staal, the Minnesota Wild. And of course, Eric Stahl's been around the NHL a long time, has a lot of experience, and certainly proved to be a very valuable member to the Minnesota Wild. Pretty much a bargain contract, especially based on his play last year. Eric Stahl's a solid veteran guy who could be that number 2, number 3 center on a lot of teams and really provide a lot of depth. Now, the Minnesota Wild are not necessarily completely sold on trading him, but it has been revealed that Paul Fenton, the general manager of the Wild, does have clearance from ownership that he very well could be a seller at the deadline. If he can get some deals that are going to help them for the future, even if it means taking away from the roster and missing the playoffs. Ownership is more concerned about the future than making the playoffs this year. As much as they would like to make the playoffs, They're not necessarily making that their top priority. So we very well might see the Wild sell off some assets, and we're Staal being a pending UFA. He's a prime candidate to do that. It doesn't mean he couldn't go back and re-sign in the summer, which they very well might explore, or they may go in a different direction. Obviously, the contract, like I said, that Staal signed with the Wild as a pending UFA a couple of years ago has worked out quite nicely. But obviously, he's gotten a few years older. Things have changed a little bit. So we will see now. Obviously, Staal does have a modified no-trade clause. I believe there's 10 teams that he can veto in a trade. But it is believed that Eric Staal has had discussions with Paul Fenton and basically is willing to at least entertain offers should there be one that comes up that might require him waiving his no-trade. So it's not a complete done deal that he wouldn't consider waiving for certain teams, but obviously it's mostly going to be contenders that come calling, and obviously, a player like him, a veteran guy, have a chance to go win a Stanley Cup. Likely not going to turn that down, even if it's a team that was originally on his no-trade list. Now, it is believed that division rival Winnipeg, it certainly would have interest. As we mentioned, the Jets are certainly looking for a top 6 upgrade, whether it be Staal or another guys, a lot of other guys here on the trade bait board that we've talked about that they have interest. I'm not sure the Jets really know 100% how they're going to proceed here yet, but he certainly would be a player that they would be interested in, amongst others, a few other contenders as well, maybe in Nashville as well, another team to look at, and there could be some teams in the East too. But a guy like Staal with all that experience certainly would not be surprised to see him moved. And the other player, like I mentioned, was Ottawa Senators defenseman Cody Ceci. Now, Ceci is not a pending UFA like many of the guys that we discussed here in the trade rumor mill, but he is a pending RFA. Last summer negotiations between Ottawa and Ceci were, kind of not going to best. They settled on a 1-year deal through arbitration. And it is believed that the Senators might be a little leery of signing him longer term. And really, to be honest, based on his play, I can see why. And, but based on what he was asking for last summer and where they settled at, certainly was much lower than what he was requesting. Now, it is believed that the team that's been showing a lot of interest in scouting them in that regard is the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, the Lightning, as strong as a team as they are, we had reported probably a number of weeks ago, I think it was, that the one area that they very well might try to add to would be a right shot defenseman. Really anybody who can play within that top 6 type of role. And he certainly fits that bill. Now, whether or not they actually hang on to him beyond that, I don't know. Tampa Bay certainly does have a lot of other contract decisions they need to make this summer. They have a big RFA in Braden Point that they need to sign. Obviously, they're already kind of tight against the cap. They might try to move Ryan Callahan. There's certainly some creativity with their cap situation that needs to be attended to this summer. So really, from that perspective, I'm not sure that Ceci kind of makes sense for them. But it is being reported that they're certainly having interest. They've been scouting a lot of Ottawa games lately. And Ottawa and Winnipeg have been scouting each other quite a bit lately as well. I know for tonight's game, obviously Winnipeg's playing at home and Ottawa's on the road. And there's certainly a lot of reps from both sides at both games. So I believe that they've kind of been having some preliminary trade talks as well. And the Jets might be interested in some of their other players that might be available. And really, until we get decisions from guys like Duchesne and Stone and Dzingel, if they're going to be resigning, that's kind of holding things up right now, is all the top guys at the top of the trade bait board. Until we know if they're signing with their teams or wanting to move on, we really don't have a lot of other big-time movement. Once we kind of know the answers to those questions, the floodgates will likely open and we'll see more moves. Until then, we'll likely see more minor moves, here and there, leading up to the deadline. So as always, I want to hear your thoughts and comments down below in the comments section. What do you think of all these potential trades we discussed here today, especially the Cam Talbot to the Philadelphia Flyers trade? That does appear to be getting close, and it has some legs here, so we very well might see that deal go down here over the next couple of days. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially if you're an Oilers fan. What would you like to see the return pieces coming back from Philadelphia for Cam Talbot? What do you think is reasonable in that regard? If you're new to the channel here, hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up before you go. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.